Oh, hey, how's it going? Steve here, and I thought I'd show you a couple cool things on the guitar from space. And these are just simple things to try if maybe you've been playing guitar for a little while and are feeling a little bored or stuck or something. If you play, open chords and stuff like that, but want to expand your playing a little bit. And so one way to do that is with some simple alternate tunings. And I don't mean open tunings like open G or open, whatever, or dadgad or any of those ones where you're changing many of the strings tuning. I'm talking about just like one or two maybe. And so one thing you could try is... I'll give you a few different ones. One thing to try is take your high E string, if you're already in standard, and drop that down to D. You can use a tuner, or one thing that's easier if you're just sitting there. Is if you play the 12th fret harmonic on your D string. That's the note you're aiming for. You can also check it against the 3rd fret of your B string. Those should be the same. And so you can do whatever you want, but the way that this is most useful, I think, is to either play open chords that don't have you press down on the high E, or if you do have a chord that normally you would press down on the high E, just don't. Just to kind of imagine, we always want that high D ringing. So for instance, like a regular old C chord that I have, ring finger here, right? With that open string ringing up there that's now a D, we get this cool chord, which sounds, I don't know, more interesting to me than a regular one. This is technically we call it a C add 9, because it's still a C major chord, and we're adding the 9th note in the scale. And you're thinking, 9th note? There's not 9 notes. Well, if you're not familiar with music theory, when there's upper extensions like that on chords, and it's what normally would be the 2nd note, or the 4th note, or the 6th note, it gets kind of confusing, because those notes can already be things. You could have a sus2, a C sus2 would be that, but we're saying, no, the major 3rd's still there. But on top of that, up higher, we're adding the 9. So if you count on a scale, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, that's 8, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So 9 and 2 are the same note, just an octave apart, and similar to 4, 11, and 6 and 13. So when you see chords like that with 6th and 13th and stuff, that's what they're talking about. But anyway, you don't really even need to know all that to benefit from these chords. So C is like this. Now if we play A minor, just our regular A minor that already has this open string ringing, we get a cooler chord. Normally A minor sounds like this, but with our open D ringing up here. Now in that case, just in case you're a music theory nerd, or you're curious, what to write, if you write a song with this, you want to know what to call it, It's similar. In this case, it's an A minor add 11. Because if we're in A, 1, 2, 3, 4 is the note D, and if you went past the octave, you'd find that 4 and 11 are the same note. So we get a cool chord. It's just something that can be kind of inspiring to mess around with if you haven't. And if we played as a regular E minor chord, where we just put our, we got fret 2 and fret 2 on the A and D string, we get E minor 7. E minor normally sounds like this, but with the open, you get that D up there, which is the minor 7. Now, if you are going to play a bar chord, like, let's say F, you'll find something goes pretty wonky. What was that F up here? It's technically, like 2 frets lower or 2 half steps lower. So it's an E flat. So what was your regular old F chord is now an F dominant 7, which in the context of is probably not the chord you want, unless you want people to feel deceived when you get to that. So there's a couple ways around it. You could play, you could play the chord like this, like a bar chord, except I'm not barring these 2 notes. And you get a pretty cool chord there because we have an open B ringing up there and the open D. In that case, if you wanted to know what to call that chord, it would be an F, I guess sharp 11 add 13. There's the sharp 11, and there's the 13 up there. But you wouldn't call it F13 sharp 11 because just the way chord notation works, if you say, for instance, like if we did a C9 chord, C9 implies that the flat 7 is there too, because they're stacked thirds. And so if you see, if you gave a band or something play C9 and you wanted them to play this pretty thing with no flat 7, they would say C9, okay, and you'd be like, what are you doing? And same thing like C13 or C11 or whatever, they're implying all the ones below it usually. Like if it's in F11, you can assume that they mean it's okay to play the flat 7 and the 9 and the 11. So the add thing is like saying, no, it's just the triad. I'm talking the regular chord triad, but just this one extra note, not all the ones implied below it. And then for G, you could play like a regular stock G chord, and you'd get an F up there, which in the key of C is totally normal. I don't think that's a great voicing for it though, so I would just not play that high E. Then you get just a nice G chord. So the 4 chords together would be C, which we know is technically C add 9, but we're not doing anything different other than what we did to our tuning. A minor, and then E minor, and then F. be E minor. Just skip the F, go straight to G. If you put a rhythm to it, you could have like... stuff like that. Another case that you could experiment with, pretend we were going to play D major. If you really played your regular D major, it would sound different too, because that high E is detuned, so that technically becomes D sus2. But for this, I would just not play that high E string and just let that open D ring. And now I've got A, D, and a unison D. So it's technically like a D5 or D no third. We don't know if it's major or minor with just this information, right? If the melody was whoo, we'd be like, okay, it's major. But if the melody was, okay, it's minor, oh. And I'm doing singing, the F sharp says, oh. Or the F. But in this case, it's cool that it's ambiguous. And then another cool chord you could try with this tuning is leave those two fingers the same. Take your middle finger and play the 3rd fret of the A string on the note C. Then I'd lift up these 2 fingers, still holding my ring finger there on that unison D note. I'd put my index finger on the 2nd fret A string, which gives us basically a nice G chord that's in first inversion because the B is in the bass. And then you could slide that index finger down to the 1st fret. That gives you, you could think about it as a G minor in first inversion, because the B flat, we have B flat, D, G, and then 2 Ds. So it's a triad. Or you could think about it as a B flat 6. Doesn't matter too much though. And then you could take that whole shape with holding these 2 strings and slide it up 2 frets to where now my index finger is on the 3rd fret of A string, my ring finger is on the 5th fret of the B string. Now that's what I call C add 9. That's a cool voice thing because we have that sus2 there, but we still have the 3rd, and we have the 9. So you have C, D, G, E, D. So it's kind of floaty. And then we could go back to our ambiguous D5 chord. In all these cases, it's important, not just with this particular chord progression, but in general. Sometimes when you're first learning guitar, it's easy to either accidentally always be hitting the low E, even when it's not part of a chord. So like, for instance, on like a C chord, a lot of people, that's just ringing all the time, which is okay because it's part of the chord, it's the 3rd, but now you're playing a C in first inversion, which has a different sound than a solid C in the bass. Or similarly, the worst offense is when people are playing the F chord that's kind of the partial one. It's okay to have the A ringing, because the A, that's like it being in first inversion. But if you accidentally hit that low E, that's like putting the minor 7 in the bass, which is like upsetting, usually, especially with this voice on the guitar. So some people hit it all the time. Some people only occasionally hit it. Or some people just, it's always kind of just ringing, muddying up the sound of your chords. And so there's 2 strategies to stop doing that. One is my thumb is coming just over the fretboard, and if I'm not playing the low E string, my thumb meat is just grazing it just enough so it's not going to ring, right? And then the other strategy is to just try to work on being more precise with your picking hand, that when you strum down on this, that you're aiming your pick is going to land first on the A string, not always just all the strings. So I'm kind of swooping down, passing the E string, and then when I'm coming back up, I'm lifting away so I don't always knock this, because even though I'm muting it, I don't want to hear it. I don't want that drum in there, right? So that's a way to clean up your playing just in general, even not with alternate tunings, playing open chords, or like an A minor, like you don't want that low E in there all the time, I don't think, unless you mean to. And there's times when it can be really pretty when you mean to, like if we had a chord progression C, and our next chord is going to be this F. Right, with the F in the bass, which I'm playing with my thumb. One way would be C, F. But if we're going to intentionally use that low E and really highlight that the C is in first inversion, we could first play C cleanly without playing this low E, then really add it. Knowing that E is going to lead us up to F in a satisfying manner, right? So those are some fun things that you can do, just tuning the one string down to D. And maybe in another video I'll show you some of the other little ones and uses I've found for them. And so yeah, and when you're done, remember to put it back before you go perform your hit song that does not utilize the alternate tuning. Let me know what favorite tunings you have, and if you have any questions on guitar stuff. Okay, talk to you later.